we can go ahead and share in the chat. Hi, Monica. Oh my gosh, that's so great. You meditated today. Good for you. Yes. Oh my gosh, you guys are great. You fit in all the exercise and that's amazing. Yes. Anyone else want to share what you did to feed your soul today? So of course it could be a form of exercise and meditation, or like I mentioned, oh good. So listen, getting your vitamin D in. Yes, Jennifer. Most definitely. And a cup of tea and some Starbucks. Yes. So we all, oh, reggae, good stuff. We all feed our soul in so many different ways, right? So as I present to you, I want to take you to, I didn't mention it in my title, but all of the things I'm going to mention today are a part of having a culturally responsive classroom. And this form of engagement that I just got your curiosity and we were able to engage you into the conversation was a part of being culturally responsive. And these are things that we should be doing with each other and with our families and our students. So here we go. I am Lizette Roman, and I am the co-chair of New York State TESOL Association for the Long Island region. I'm also a certified 6th grade bilingual educator here in Long Island. If you ever want to contact me, here's my contact information. Just feel free to take a screenshot. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Lizette Roman, also educating with love. And before we begin, as many of you we've been reiterating, you're awesome for being here today. You're awesome for being here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So you are so resilient, and let's keep it up. We're lifelong learners, and I feel so grateful to be surrounded by amazing educators like yourself. And so today our agenda, we're going to be talking about 10 tips how you can build relationships and best practices for communication with our families, indicators that you've been effective, and the Padlet, your goodies to take home. So before I even begin, I also want to remind everyone that pretty much everything I'm presenting today are things that you might already do, or you do in a different way, or you've already heard of, but it's always so great to be validated in what you're doing, or to be reminded of something that we're doing. And so I just want to preface this presentation with that. And so something I heard of a long time ago, and it just came back to me during these times, and we've probably seen it a lot now again, are Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So before anything, it's so important to remember that our students and their families' mental health and well-being comes first, and knowing that their physiological needs are being met, their safety, and we need to make sure all this is being met, and before we can actually really even get to all the nitty and gritty of their instruction, right? So we have to be flexible. This video I'm about to present was created with one of my students and a couple other families from last school year during the pandemic. I want to point that out there because I want to remind everyone that it's not about us working in the community, it's about us working with our community. And so last year was a year of a lot of learning, that school year, and this year is as well. And I really was so far behind with so much technology. And I started to talk to my students, and I started to say, hey, I need you to help me add some animations to these videos. Or I noticed that your father, the student's father was from Peru and was working at Stony Brook, and he asked me to proofread a presentation that he had done on Doodly. And so then when I had to present, I went back to Dad because I knew his strengths, and I said, can you help me create a Doodly video? So we worked together. It was awesome. And it was my student who was 12 at the time, and her father who helped me create this video. So I'm going to go ahead and play it for you.
How to deepen relationships if you are of a different age, older or younger. Race, culture, religion, personality. Some of us are introverted, some of us are extroverted. Physical appearance. Some of us are tattoo lovers, some of us are not tattoo lovers, some of us have short or long hair. We are all from different neighborhoods. Build strong relationships based on respect and love with the students. Treat them as if they are your own. With the parents, treat them the way you would like to be treated.
This sounds so simple, right? It sounds like, okay, lovely, but really it can be this simple, the golden rule. It comes back to the golden rule of respect. And so, how we deepen the relationships, we have to keep in mind that it is difficult to build relationships when we come from such a different world, even if it's a different neighborhood. I mean, I live in one area of Long Island, my students live in a completely different neighborhood. And so we have to find ways to connect. And bottom line, it comes down to respect. More going a little deeper is we have to examine our bias. So according to Harvard Graduate School of Education, Professor Karen Mapp has done some research, and some things that she and her research has pointed out and in her book is we unintentionally make assumptions and judgments about the desire of families to be involved or their strength of commitment to their child's education. I know that I am so guilty of this. And when I read this, it was just like an eye opener. Oh my gosh. I do sometimes think, oh, these our parents, they just really, why aren't they committing to the child's education? This should be their number one. But it's important for us to take a step back and to pay attention to our families, what we call their superpowers. And perhaps they're not committing the way I want them to commit, but we have to look and to think about what's the way that they believe they should be committing to the child's education. And we can communicate to talk about what are some ways we need them to, we would like them to contribute, or the ways that they would like us to contribute, and meet and compromise and discuss and find our strengths to move forward. So we have to examine our assumptions and appreciate families' many strengths to move forward, and pay attention to their superpowers. And this will help us with effective communication with our families. So ask yourself, do I underestimate the family's ability to contribute? What can they contribute? Can they contribute their time, their talents, networking, monetary donations? We can't assume that they don't have the time. We can't assume that they don't have the talents. We have to really find out. We have to find out. So be proactive. Habits of Success by Stephen Covey. The number one habit of success is we have to be proactive. And so create a spreadsheet with parents and possible and start writing down what their possible contributions can be, and create opportunities for them to share. So those are contributions. Now, what about cultural and racial? Did I make a cultural or racial assumption about the student and their family before checking the facts? And how can you give students and parents the opportunity to showcase their culture? Set up a multicultural night, virtual, obviously. Parent guest read alouds and culturally responsive books. Set up a potluck. I went to a conference. No, I wasn't a conference. It was like more of a gathering through New York State. TESOL was amazing. And this one teacher I loved his ideas. He was up in the Bronx and he was talking about all the diversity in the Bronx. And he had all the parents at 6 p.m. at night, when everyone's making dinner, log on, and all the kids had to share what they were preparing with their families, because that's what in his school, a lot of them like to cook, and they got to share what they get to cook with their families at that time. And so it was a great moment to really go deeper and in learning more about their culture. What about academics? So ask yourself, did I assume the students and the family, the students and families at level of education? So at the surface, we think, oh, all our students are, these are all newcomers, and they're probably struggling financially. We might think that at the surface, you're thinking, they're newcomers, and this is where they're probably struggling with their English, and whatever assumptions we might make. But did we really find out, what the parents' level of education is, and what their level of education was? Perhaps they went to private school in their native country, or perhaps their parents do have a college degree, or it could be that their parents do not know how to read or write in their own native language. So these things are important. And how can I learn more about their level of education? So take the time to read through your students' cumulative files and IEPs. Initiate genuine conversations with our parents, and create a project where students interview their parents. Now, I did this on Flipgrid at the beginning of the school year, and it was phenomenal. It was so great. I just shared it. You'll be able to see it on YouTube, but I showed a clip where my students said questions to interview their parents, and the parents created questions to interview their child. And you were able to see so much through these Flipgrid videos, how they interact with the parents. I had one student who you could see them struggling on communicating with their parent because their parent only spoke one language, their native language. And my student was in that stage where they're starting to lose their L1 and are just now becoming so proficient in English, not lose it, but they're becoming so proficient with their second language that they're not practicing their L1 as much. And you just saw that struggle and between the parent and the child. And so then I had the opportunity later on to dig deeper into that and find ways to help them build that bond greater, and and talk to them about that. But and I saw so many other great things. I was able to learn so much about all the families doing the Flipgrid video and them interviewing one another. It was a great project. It was exciting for them, exciting for the parents. We're including them. So I would just want to take a quick moment, because I'm talking so much here, for you to tell me and to think, and let's put it in the chat. I don't have a poll set up, but we can just put the numbers 1 through 5 in the chat. Go ahead and tell me, culturally and linguistically diverse parents engage in our program as advocates and leaders in the following ways. How are the ways that your district or organization is making sure that parents are engaged? So 1, they are comfortable asserting their child rearing opinions and practices. 2, regularly participate and volunteer in parent programs. 3, help design and lead culturally specific activities. 4, are well represented in decision-making roles such as policy council or a parent committee. And 5, have participated in a leadership training or role, either within a program or with a community partner. So what are some things that you might be seeing? Do we know? Or we might just be thinking about this and we might be reflecting, oops, maybe we need to work on this. Feel free to put it in the chat. Okay, I'm going to move forward. So tip number 2. Tip number 2, great teachers listen and validate feelings. They allow students to have a voice and ask for their parents' perspective. Listen before offering solutions. This really hit me hard when I wrote this and when I read about this. We have to listen before we offer solution. It takes all 3 to succeed. Sometimes we have to just take a seat back and pay attention to what parents have to say, what students have to say, not what we have to say to them. If we listen and we say these things in a conversation and we're listening, they might be able to suggest things to us that might work better for their child. So one of the things that we can do when we're validating and listening to parents' feelings or to the students' feelings is, what I'm learning about you is, or on a scale 1 through 10, 10 being the best, how well did I summarize what you are thinking and feeling after the fact that we've listened? And how can I support you? Many a times we're thinking, how can I support this parent? What resources can I get for this parent? Or what can I do better so they can better help their child at home? But maybe the parent knows the solution because they really have something to share that's really worthwhile listening to, and that will be useful for you also in the classroom. We just need to listen to what they have to say and ways that what they need from us at the moment, right? So they can support their child's education. All right, so quick check-in. Mood meter. Use an emoji or one adjective to describe how you are feeling in the chat. So do you feel validated right now? Do you feel perhaps a little shocked on some of the things I've said, or you feel like it's a moment of reflection, chill, content, proud, like, oh yeah, I do this. Give me some words. Proud. Yes. Thank you, Cassandra. Yes. So excited. Thank you, Janet. Yes. Thank you. Reflective. Thank you, Amelia. Most definitely, this is more of a moment to reflect for all of us, I feel like. And so, tip number 3, learn about what is important to them in their world. Okay. So, there's something called deficit mindset. And it's not just, and with deficit mindset, one of the deficit mindsets is us trying to have children always assimilate to our world. So we have to think about what is important to our students and in their world to better connect with them and with their families. So with that Flipgrid project that I did, I learned so much about parents' political views, about their religious views. I mean, they were like an open book, let me tell you. And so that is one way you can get this information from them. But little by little, you can learn about what makes them tick, what is the family's makeup and ethnicity, what sports do they play. Like I said, don't be scared to talk about political views. What are their hobbies? What is their style of learning? Types of learners? It's all so different. So I got to tell you a quick story. Here we go. Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, a couple years ago, if you're familiar with him, he's got some pretty vulgar lyrics. And so my students were sharing that they love this character, Bad Bunny. And when I looked him up, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I can't even think about bringing this guy into the classroom as far as like playing his music in the classroom or even having the kids talk about him. I was just like, I'm not having anything to do with this guy, Bad Bunny. Time goes by and I could not engage my students. And I thought, I need to engage my kiddos. How am I going to get them involved? And so I went back to read Bad Bunny's lyrics. I said, there's got to be something in his songs that I can really use in a lesson. And so I did. I found this song by Bad Bunny called Caro. And Caro means expensive. And this song really is all about self-worth. And it's about seeing your self-worth and that you are expensive. And so then we took that song, I engaged them in the lesson with that song. And from there, they did a whole, ELA lesson. And let me see if I have this example to show you now. I'm sorry, I should have popped this up a little bit. No, so that's not it. I'm sorry, I apologize. Let me go back. Okay, we'll just move forward with this. And which of these practices do you currently use? We're going to take a moment to take a poll. So which of these practices do you currently use in everyday interactions with your families in your program? So again, this is a moment of reflection. 1, using a variety of communication strategies to reach families. 2, showing sensitivity and respect for families, cultures, and languages. You can include more than one, by the way. And 3, communicating with families in their home languages or arranging an interpreter. 4, using materials, recruitment, intake that are welcoming and responsive to different cultures and languages. 5, welcoming conversation about parenting and family cultures, languages, values, experiences, ethics, and strengths. And 6, seeking information or consultation about specific cultural values and practices when necessary. So feel free to go ahead and throw that in the chat. Thank you, Jennifer. 1 and 3, using a variety of communication strategies. Yes. Thank you, Kelly. 2, 3, and 4. So we're communicating with families in their home languages. Yes. Using materials. Yes. Amazing. I have a colleague that just had a student come in from Israel. She only speaks Spanish. So, it was most definitely a challenge for her, but allowing her student day 1 and the family day 1 is like, where's our Google translator? And then instantly the parent already felt relieved. You saw the affective filter come down because it was like, okay, you're okay with using this translator, you're okay with using these apps, and so most definitely we have to make the parents feel comfortable from day one. Tip number 4, we have to focus on creating lessons that are student centered and focus on the 6 C's. So what are the 6 C's? Choice, choice, choice. So our brains are wired for free will. And so we have to give students choice. There are so many resources out there as far as choice boards. That's a huge one right now. I recently had my students reading Button Up Buddy. And so they had the choice of creating just a scene with links attached, hyperlinks, and I taught them how to do that. Or they actually they could write a paragraph for their reflection on what they learned in that specific chapter. So we have to give choices and opportunities for collaboration. So using our breakout rooms and then having those breakout rooms be in heterogeneous or homogeneous groups. Now, I know we have this great challenge of our students interacting in those breakout rooms. Something that for me personally that I found useful is assigning everyone a role in the breakout rooms, but some things that they feel comfortable with. We can't, again, assume what we think the student might feel comfortable with. I talked to my students, I sent a survey, and I talked to my students face to face. What makes you feel comfortable? What would you like to do in the breakout room? And so they really appreciated that I took the time to ask them that. And then you saw the affective filter come down again. And then they were more likely to participate and giving them the purpose as to why it's important to participate. And I went into the whole brain research that our brains are wired so that way that we need collaboration to be able to learn and to be able to retain information. And we're more likely to retain the information if we do collaborate. So communication, same as above, we're social creatures, and critical thinking, problem solving, and allowing creativity. But I can't reiterate the fact that, again, the neuroscience behind everything. We need to allow this bonding with families and our students first to release the oxytocin in the brain, because once that's released, our students' fight or flight is like taken away and they just put their guard down. It's time. They feel good with the bonding, and that actually allows the brain to then creatively think. But if we're not creating these welcoming environments and we're just throwing assignments at them that are not purposeful and meaningful, it makes it tough. So, and same thing with our parents, so I'm going to move forward to tip number 5. Tip number 5, let's talk about these surveys that I keep talking about. Periodically send out surveys in both English and in their native language. How you get to them, that depends on how you communicated with parents. So it could be through text, through Parent Square, through Remind app, whatever it might be, which is so great that we now have all this technology that we can periodically send out surveys, and it's easy. The data is collected so easily for us. I recently created a survey for my parents, but I also sent one out earlier in the school year, and I want to share that with you. Some questions that I put were so helpful for me because, again, this goes back to getting rid of these assumptions. So I wanted to ask the parents directly, how do you want me to communicate with you? Question number 1, I asked them, as a parent, what do you find to be the most effective way to obtain important announcements from your child's teacher? And I put it in their native language. And so many of my parents told me they'd rather have this information effective way. It's effectively being said, they're getting it is through the Remind app or through Class Dojo or through Parent Square, whatever app that you're using. And then second place was they would rather receive an email. So this data is really helping me be efficient with my time. We know our time is so limited now, right? We have so much going on. Another question I asked, As a parent, what do you find to be most effective and a preferred way for your child's teacher to communicate with you regarding assignments, projects, and grades? And many of my parents, again, told me that they want to receive it through this app that they're using. They, let me see here. Referring to question number 2, how frequent would you like for your child's teacher to contact you to report progress or concerns? In reference, and so then we put in Spanish again. And many of my students would like a weekly report, and then some say only when there's a problem. So it's, if you have to give them options, right? And so again, this will help you drive your instruction, will help you organize yourself also, and be effective with your time, efficient, excuse me. And during remote learning, what type of relationship would you like to develop with your child's teacher? And so this was fun. I like to strictly, many of my parents said I like to strictly have a professional relationship, and some said, hey, let's be friends. And so you get to learn more about your families and what they want, what their culture asks for. So again, that goes back to being culturally responsive, because every community is different, every school is different, every culture is different. So we're going to have a moment for breakout. Let me see here. Actually, I'm not sure if we're going to have a moment for breakout. I'm not going to have time for a breakout, actually. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and have you help me out, fill out these sentence frames. And so building relationships, share one aspect of relationship building that you feel you have succeeded in during remote learning during this time. And share one aspect of relationship building you feel you need to incorporate more of. Give you a couple minutes. Thank you, Jacqueline, for responding. Oh, Talking Points app. I didn't even know about that app. This is why I love meeting with everyone. I didn't know about Talking Points app. And I'm going to write it down. Oh my gosh, awesome. Thank you. So that sounds great. It translates your messages. Oh, that's great. So it is the Remind app. The Remind app translates all your messages, which is so helpful, so useful. Now, these apps are great, but I don't know if anybody's hit a wall at a point where perhaps we have all these apps, but the big struggle for my school and my team was, how do we get the parents to actually consistently use the apps and learn even how to use the app? I mean, I have parents who unfortunately aren't very tech savvy, didn't know where to start. So we most definitely, we train the kids, and then I have, which I'm going to get to, we do something called Cafecito con Señora Roman with my students on Sundays. I send our parents survey to ask what was the best time to meet with parents, and we have monthly meetings. I have monthly meetings with my parents, and we have coffee together, and we share so information about what's going on in the district, and we share information about habits of success to better help our students, and how to use things like this app. And so I'll model it for them when on to our school hub. So let's move on. Thanks, Jennifer, thank you. Number 6, be your natural, authentic self. So admit when you are wrong. Now, this is hard for us, it's hard for me, but show that you too make mistakes, and think and laugh about it, and think about how you react to those situations, and be open and share appropriate facts about your own life. So we're showing a little bit of vulnerability here, and that you feel that it might help and support parents. So my oldest son has special needs. And so there have been times that I have openly shared that with some families who their child might have an IEP or they might be getting evaluated. And so that's a very difficult time for parents. I know because I've been in their shoes, and I sometimes will share something very personal like that with my families to have that connection. And it's okay, obviously, to be silly and fun. So where and how do I say some of these things? So admit when you're wrong. So where do we do this? We do it in the classroom during read aloud, on a video lesson. When I first started using YouTube to create my math videos, I mean, I mess up all the time and I make a mistake, but I laugh about it, And so something I might say is, I'm sorry, I made the mistake of, or I was wrong the way that I reacted. Let me rethink this. Or, you might laugh something off depending what it is. And so we're modeling that we are all human and they can too. And again, that brings their affective filter down. Be open and share appropriate facts, like I mentioned earlier. And we can start off by saying, I'm so excited to share X, Y, and Z. My opinion on blank is blank. And what do you feel about this topic? This is a community event, join us. So you can create a professional social media page if you feel comfortable with it. I created Educating with Love prior to the pandemic, but it was all so that I could share with my students some great things that are happening. So in the world of education. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Agape Love. And what is Agape Love? So here we go.
Give respect, dignity, and make them feel safe in your virtual classroom. If you give it, you will receive it. Love Agape Love. Expect your students, parents with love. Make eye contact and smile through the screen. Families look at your positivity, hope, energy, and excitement. Affection. Create with virtual hugs and kisses and use Bitmojis and emojis through the chat, privately or not. We're all humans. We all want to be given respect, dignity, and to feel safe. Shout out. Do a Peloton hello. Look at the list of participants for your meeting and give them a joyous shout out. Pronounce their name correctly, acknowledging one of their accomplishments for the week through the lesson. Support. Make it clear to your students that all questions are welcome and you're more than willing, guiding, and they're in the right direction with help and resources.
So Agape Love. Speak to your students and parents with love. Make contact with them. It's an unconditional love. Agape Love is an unconditional love. And we need to always remind ourselves that our kids have feelings. It's not just about, okay, now we got to get straight to this lesson, acknowledging them, saying hello before we start our lesson. And so sometimes we're so overwhelmed with things that we have to do, we might not do it. So this time of year is a perfect time for check-in and reflection. Are we doing that? Are we doing that? If some of you get on that Peloton, you know about that Peloton hello shout out. Ali Love is great at it. And she'll be like, hey, how are you? So-and-so, nice to see you. And today's your birthday. Whatever it is, as we're teaching, to keep them excited and engaged and feel that they're a part of the class. And of course, most definitely make sure we pronounce their names correctly. Now, I speak Spanish. I have a student that comes from a Spanish-speaking country, and she came in and I read her name and I thought I was pronouncing her name correctly this whole entire time. Come to find out, I overhear another teacher pronouncing it differently. And so again, I was assuming that I was pronouncing it correctly, but in fact I wasn't. She was too embarrassed, thought it'd be disrespectful to correct me. And so I told her, no, you have every right to correct me if I'm saying your name the wrong way. Please tell me again. Please write it out for me one more time. Make sure that you correct me. And we have to be willing to do that. tip number 8. I know right now might be tough to empower parents, but there's still room for that. So setting SMART goals together with families during these monthly meetings have been crucial. What's a SMART goal? They're measurable. And so having our students understand what is a SMART goal and quarterly go over these goals will really make a world of difference for the rest of the quarter, the rest of the school year. If kids don't have purpose and a drive and a direction, then they're just going to be all over the place, and so are we. So SMART goals with parents are important. Training your students and also showing parents what are SMART goals is crucial. Participatory budgeting. This could be on pause, but maybe for the next school year, parents are part of participatory budgeting. The state of New York does offer this with public schools, and something that you can maybe look into with your district, where parents have a say in what happens with the budget at the building level. Family liaisons, again, going back to parents' talents, and PTA and board meeting reminders posted in your central hub. And again, at these monthly parent meetings, it has been made a world of difference when I have these meetings with parents. Bringing some more empowerment through local food pantries, letting them know how they can volunteer, not just maybe they need it for their families, but also that opportunities to volunteer at local food pantries, keeping them posted with that information. Community-based organizations, as the Butterfly Project here on Long Island, there's amazing organization called the Butterfly Project, and I left the website here for you, and it's on the Padlet. And so this is about empowering young girls and their parents. And lastly, financial awareness. So let me see here. I don't have the link on here, but the financial awareness, many banks, I recently had Capital One come into my classroom virtually and talk to my students about financial awareness. And I've also had Northwestern Mutual come into my classroom, and I have a connect also as well about planning for college and these conversations. So we need to help make these conversations happen to empower the parents, because there's the 529 plan for the parent to help save up money for the child to go to college. Or recently we had a question from one of my colleagues: can a child apply for financial aid if they are not a citizen? And so recently, it's been about a year now, that the state of New York has passed a law that they can apply for loans to be able to attend college. And so before, that wasn't the case, and that's not the case in all states. So these are some pieces of information that we can share with parents to empower them and to empower our students and give them purpose.
So how and when do I collect all this information about the family to build a relationship? Well, you can attend their virtual events. Many of our students play instruments, go to their piano recital. Many of them are part of a church where they play these instruments, and you can be on the Zoom meeting, ask them to invite you. What about a sport? From a distance, you can go to the soccer game. What about a ceremony? Attend it virtually. Create virtual clubs. You create the club. Have the student create a club, a book club, a finance club. Our communities desperately need financial education. Call your local bank. I did this past year. Bank of America does a finance awareness program. Capital One will do it for you. Our families need this. They need financial awareness, and parents can be involved. What about technology? Parents also want technology. Find a family liaison. So your family liaison member can be the one to make parents feel comfortable if they not feel a little intimidated by you, to do workshops on technology. Find that parent that's awesome at technology to teach them how to use the technology, and it takes a load off of you. Find that parent that likes to network. That's their talent, and they can be the one that can answer some questions about when's the next school event. Make that parent feel empowered. That parent will communicate back and forth to you. You share ideas. The parent.
So some of us might be thinking, yeah, right. Who am I going to ask? Again, this goes back to really getting to know your families. This year, I have a mom who, she's a single mother. She's only been in this country for 1 year, but boy, is she an intelligent woman. And her and I have really gotten to know one another. And she is my family liaison this year. She, after a couple meetings with parents, we found the need that parents would like to please communicate other than just during the month. And so she's been the one to be like somewhat of a representative. She talks to the parents, and then she fills me in, apart from my surveys, what parents would like to hear from me at the meetings. So if you ask, you shall receive. And this has been just a great thing to do, those meetings with the parents. I can't emphasize that enough. Effective classroom management really helps with effective communication with parents. So creating predictable routines. I give math tests every Friday. The parents know that, the students know that. It has not changed. It can be either a quiz or a test, but something will happen on Friday. So that way, parents don't really need to talk to me about it anymore. They just know what's going to happen on Friday. It's consistent. It's a predictable routine. The parent now knows that by Wednesday, they're already starting to study for the math test. If they don't see the kid out with the book by Wednesday or Thursday, they need to be on top of their child. So that's already something set in stone, right? We are flexible. You know, if a kid is something's going on, they can't take the test. I'm flexible, but as a whole, we are taking the test on Fridays. And so this consistency is so important. Consistent formats for assignments and worksheets, create video tutorials. And however, like we said, we give choice. So consistent formats, the way that the order that you write everything, content objective, language objective, and then top, no more than 3 sets of directions, and make it consistent, first, second, and third, and it's always in the same format. So the kids can focus on the content as opposed to what's expected, all the routine being changed on them. And assign your students partners for support and accountability. It's so important for them to have a friend. And same thing with families, like I mentioned, the parent liaison. And think about logistics to effectively communicate with parents. So class meetings, hold as many class meetings as you can with your students' families when you feel is necessary. Parent student teacher conferences. Some of us have more than 100 students. I have about 90, but I always tell myself, slowly but surely, one at a time, if it's one phone call, X amount of days. So just schedule yourself out and being proactive and writing it on the calendar. And before you know it, you have checked in with all your students. And setting these boundaries of office hours, can't express it enough. We have students sometimes that are in crisis, and I know that sometimes we might have students calling us at certain hours a day, and so it's important for us to set boundaries and set office hours, because we have our home life and we need to have self-care as well. And that's something else that might be very important, is creating one central hub. I know so many of us have had Bitmoji classrooms where they have this one central hub that parents know to go to or students know to go to, not all over the place, right? And keeping things simple. So emails should be simple and clear. Like I said for both our students and parents, top 3, just 1 to 3 step directions. Adding images for our parents, that goes back to PSYOP, adding images for our students. And most definitely, effective communication is based on data. So when we want to talk to parents, especially about sensitive topics, it's so important to talk to them about topics based on facts, data, and research. So we might want to bring out, the most recent Lexile level and their test scores, so that we can really show them what is going on with their child, as opposed to giving like personal opinions, right? So what are some indicators to help us that we've been effective, or to make sure to see, how engaged our students are? If you haven't already used it, Schoollytics with Google Classroom is available. And also we have Insights from Microsoft Teams. And I thought I would just share what Insights might look like. So it's an app that you add. So you could click on Insights, and here's an example. And it'll tell you, how many of your students signed on for, that have been active, and it gives you actual numbers, your communications. So Insights is a great way, looking back at the data, to see how engaged your students are, or your family, whatever it is that you have set up. And Schoollytics does the same thing. So it'll give you graphs so you can see what the engagement has been like with your students, or with the families if you have a team set up for your parents. Those are some great indicators. And of course, parents volunteering the time, keeping in touch. And again, you give out a survey, and they told you so. They told you that it's been effective, and things that they like or that they don't like. Some do's and don'ts. So before we wrap, we're going to wrap it up. Some do's and don'ts on how we communicate with families. You might want to take a screenshot, and feel free. So validating feelings, or we have observations, clarifications, empowerment, and inquiry, like we've discussed. Some ways you should be maybe expressing yourself is, I notice X, Y, and Z, tell me more about. Some don'ts, what's up with this? Or I like this. Sometimes we really don't need to put our personal opinions into situations. Making a clarification. What I heard you say was, so I'm wondering, instead of saying, I just don't understand you. So the way we approach situations really might be helpful with our communication with the parents, and so on. So I think we're getting cut short for time. I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank you all for listening and for your time. I hope some of this information has been valuable to you and has helped you maybe do a little reset and rethinking and of reflection. And if in any case, oops, let's move this out of the way. I don't know what happened. If in any case you would like to contact me, here's my contact information. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Educating with Love, or on Twitter, it's at Lizette Roman 13. And also Facebook. Thank you all so much for a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.